Okay, so welcome to this. It's the first time Third Sector Cafe have done an online interview with one of our speakers, and I'm delighted to welcome Debbie. Hello, Debbie.
Hello, Sophie. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So Debbie and I know each other very well because we've worked together over a number of years on tendering, so she's a really great person for me to start with. And we're just going to talk a little bit about tendering because we've got an upcoming Third Sector Cafe on the topic. So, Debbie, you work for Mercury Business Development and you write tenders for people.
I do, exactly, yes. I set up Mercury Business Development a couple of years ago. I've worked in business development for a number of years. My background is in the NHS and in the voluntary sector in health and social care. So I've kind of done it from both sides, really, because I've been a service provider as well as working in business development in those sectors. And the reason that I set up Mercury Business Development was that I actually love business development and I particularly like writing tenders. And I know people think I'm a bit odd when I say that, but I do really enjoy it. And I enjoy working in health and social care and working with organisations and helping them to grow and to win new business. So,
and there's an awful lot of tendering in that sector at the moment.
Oh, yes, there is. I mean, I do all public sector tenders, but I do prefer health and social care.
Yeah,
yeah, there is a lot of tendering going on, usually all in the same week.
So and I can vouch for the fact that you do really like writing tenders, and I think it's possibly because you're good at it. I think that it's when people face these things and they don't know how to go about them that they seem particularly distressing. And obviously, when you're writing a tender as an organisation, there's a load of pressure on you because you know that if the organisation doesn't win, sometimes there's really dire consequences. So, just can you give us a few tips if you are a charity watching this now and you've got a tender coming down the tracks and you feel a bit like a rabbit in the headlights?
Yeah.
Have you got any kind of tips to share as to how to go about it?
Yes, exactly. Well, there's two things that I would say if you know a tender's coming up sometime soon. One is kind of external and one's internal to your organisation. And the external one is firstly to find out as much about the procurement as you possibly can. So find out why it's coming out to tender now. Is it that they want, to reduce the number of providers? Is it that they want more value for money? Is it because the commissioners want to change the model? Do they want to move from an activity-based service to an outcome-based service? Also find out as much as you can about potential competitors. Go along to any bidder meetings, think about who's bid for similar contracts roundabout, who's winning them, and try and find out as much about the competitors and what they can offer. And then you should bring all this information back and do a SWOT analysis on your organisation and your winning chances, because and then be very honest about that and act on what it tells you. Yeah. So, for example, you might find that that you need to partner because there is a big gap in your experience, and so you can start those partnership discussions early. So that's the thing that I would do, externally to your organisation. But internally, I think what you need to do is set up some sort of knowledge bank. And I'm sure
great knowledge bank, yeah.
Yes, we've talked about this before, Sophie. We've worked with a lot of organisations where they have a really good service model and they have good ideas about how to deliver the service, but they can't prove that they have any capability whatsoever to do it. And if you think from a commissioner's point of view, all you've got is what is written in the tender. That's all they can take into account. So if you can't provide proof that you can actually do what you say that you're going to do, well, you're going to be scored down on that. And I think it's such a shame. And I find it a major frustration that when I work with organisations when they can't provide any evidence. A knowledge bank is something that I feel very passionate about. I've even written a book about it, which is available on Amazon if anybody wants to buy it, and I offer a course on it. But basically, it is about bringing together all the evidence, organisational evidence that you've got, alongside all the useful organisational info, like your charity number, who your Caldecott guardian is, your organisational structure, all that type of thing, your financial information. And you might think, oh dear me, that's going to be a lot of work to pull that together. But if you do that outside of the tender process, when you come to write the tender, it's a lot easier because you've got that information to hand that you can use.
Yeah, and I sometimes think the learning curve's really hard right at the beginning when organisations first start tendering.
Oh yes, yeah.
Got into this, it becomes easier.
Yes.
That also offers an advantage to the bigger organisations that are tendering more regularly.
Exactly, yes.
Against some local organisation, which maybe this is the only tender they desperately need to win, and they haven't got their knowledge bank sorted, and they don't know have all this preparation in place. So yes.
Yes, yeah. So the earlier you can start, the better, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, commissioners don't wake up one morning and think, right, oh, let's put a tender out. There is always a decision made somewhere.
Yeah.
And keeping up to date with those decision-making bodies, you know, sort of, and looking ahead at what's going to be commissioned.
Yeah.
Looking at needs assessments, strategic needs assessments, where they will say we will be commissioning this or we will be redesigning that. And just keeping your ear to the ground and taking part in provider meetings so that you know what's going to happen. So it doesn't come as a surprise, so you can be prepared. It also gives you a chance to think about your service model in advance as well and think, well, what do we do well? What can we bring? You know, what do other people do in this area? Do a bit of research around that. So you just feel more prepared and confident so that when you've got your 3 or 4 weeks to put in the tender, you're not thinking, oh, well, what are we going to do? You know,
yeah.
You've thought about it in advance.
So when organisations actually get hit by the fact they've got to submit a tender, there are various different ways that they can get support. Obviously, those various different ways come with different prices attached to them.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I think what you need to bear in mind is there's always a cost to putting in a tender, even if you do it totally in-house. And somebody has got to write it, and if they're doing that, they're not doing other things. So there is an opportunity cost.
Yeah.
I think bringing in somebody external does have advantages. I mean, I would say that because that's what I do, but it does, because if you think about it, people, you know, who work on tenders all the time are building up their skills and knowledge all the time because that's what they do. Yeah. And they also can be quite dispassionate. And I talk from, you know, somebody who worked in a charity for many years, and I've also worked with charities to help them write bids. So I've seen it kind of from both sides. And I do think sometimes people need to step back and say, okay, almost challenge you in a way to say, actually, you think that's really good, but it's not what the commission is asking for, or you know, you want to put that in because it's worked elsewhere, but would it work here? And do that sort of, you know, just bring it a different point of view, an external point of view.
It's quite easy to get tunnel vision, isn't it? And you say what you want to say and you forget to actually answer the question that's been asked. It's like doing exam questions. You've rehearsed this answer and that's what you're going to
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they've asked something completely different. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think everybody does it. I mean, a classic example, a company that I worked with, they were very proud of their national advice line, and they thought, oh, you know, this is great. It's really going to add value to everything that we do. And they were putting in for a bid in Leeds, for Leeds commissioners, and they put the advice line in thinking it would win them extra points, and they ended up, you know, being scored down because their advice line was based in London, and from the Leeds commissioner point of view, they just thought, okay, our money is going to be spent in London, paying high London wages. Yeah. So they really thought this was going to add value because they were a very experienced sort of advice line and offered all sorts of skills. But from the Leeds Commissioner's point of view, it was a big no-no. And they couldn't see that, you know, until they got this bad feedback. And then it's too late. You know, there's no second chances with a bid. You either win or you don't.
So one of the useful things is bid evaluation service, isn't it?
It is, yes. I mean, if you bring in professionals, there's lots of different things they can do. They can manage the whole project for you, you know, kind of plan it, work with your people, produce the bid, you know, for your review and for sign-off. They can do bid reviews or bid evaluations, which I think is a very cost-effective way of getting some extra support. It's like an external quality check, really. And I think people are sometimes a bit confused about what that actually is. It's not a proofreading service, although that's one part of it. If I do a bid evaluation, computer, you're making noises. If I do a bid evaluation, I look for consistency in the model. I look that you've responded to the spec. I look that you've actually answered the question.
Yes.
sadly a lot of people don't do, because they do kind of go off, or they try to shoehorn other answers into that answer, and it never works.
They try to talk about what they're really good at and want to talk about, and you're like, no, that's not what the question is.
That's not actually answering the question. I look, they've provided evidence, they've backed up everything that they've said. So it is a really comprehensive quality check, and can be done in a very constructive way. I always like to be constructive and say, this is really good, but actually you need to add a bit here. And it just gives you that reassurance before you put it in. And because it takes obviously less time than writing from scratch, then, it costs you less.
Yeah.
I think, and I know, we've both offered this to companies before, a whole package of support where you're looking at training, some bid writing and coaching to build up your skills internally, so that after a few bids you are able to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I've got clients that I've worked with longer term where I've done that sort of package with them, and now for smaller bids they'll just do them themselves, and they'll ring me if they're stuck with a question. And it would only be if it was a huge bid that they would have to kind of bring me in to do a lot of the heavy lifting and writing.
And sometimes there are particular questions, aren't they, where they might think, oh, I'm just not sure how to pitch what we're doing on this. And if they're a sort of a client that you've put through training, they'll, I'm always very open as part of training that I've done. You sort of say, well, give me a ring if you're stuck with a question.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You know that they've got the principles right and the foundations right, and you can just help them with the as you know, I like to do implementation plans.
Yes.
Whereas you're okay on all the quality questions, which I find really fiendish. But
exactly, everybody has their strengths. I mean, I have clients who I work with a lot who I don't help them with every bid now, because they've got a lot of material that they can adapt, and they know the process. But they'll still ring me up and say, we're really struggling to interpret this question, what do you think? And we have a discussion about it. And obviously I don't charge them for that, because I work with them all the time. And that's another thing, if you build up a relationship with your bid writing firm that you work with, they usually offer a discount packet. If they help you with so many bids a year, and you build up that relationship, and they need to provide less support as you go along, because you're building up resources and they help you to do that. I think it's, in terms of costs, people often wonder how much it costs, and websites for bid writing firms never seem to have prices on. Mine does, because I used to get so frustrated when I hired bid writers when I was away, that nobody would tell you how much it cost. You need to expect to pay around £450 a day, plus VAT if they're VAT registered. Usually if you hire somebody for a number of bids, they'll reduce that to around 400. Or you can, if you think if it's just a big review, that's less days, so that's going to cost less.
Yeah.
Some companies do charge a lot more than that. We've seen £750.
That'd be nice.
But they just outsource the work usually to writers who you could hire yourself directly anyway.
Yeah.
So they're not really offering much more for that money. And you also see people who charge a lot less, but it's usually because they're inexperienced.
Yeah.
Or not very good.
I guess the thing is about having contact with a bid, finding a bid writer, because it is so. I would recommend finding them ahead of time, so that when the crunch, you've already got that relationship in place.
Exactly, yeah. And I do think if you've got a set budget as well, speak to a bid writer and say, look, we can only afford this. What can you offer? I've got a client that I work with a lot now, and their very first bid, they'd never bid before. They had no idea how much it was going to cost, and they'd only put a small amount of budget. And I quoted them what I would normally quote for the sort of, support that they needed, which was everything really. And they said, oh, we really can't afford that. We've only got this much. And I said, well, okay, then this is what I can do for this. Yeah. And so we looked at how we could use their budget in the best way, so that they could get as much support as they could for what they could afford. Yeah. So don't be afraid to do that and to negotiate.
Yeah. And you're going to be talking at a Third Sector Cafe coming up soon. What sort of things are you going to cover in the cafe?
Well, it's really going to be led by the questions from Kathy.
We like that.
Yeah.
Very specific questions, guys.
Yes, exactly. But I'm happy to talk about anything from the whole business development life cycle. So right from how do you decide, what you're going to bid for and how to make those bid decisions, right through to preparing for your bid, writing your bid, and then, how you can use your actual service delivery to inform what you do in future bids. So anything really.
Yeah, and would you be happy to look at, if anybody brought along a bid they'd already done and perhaps they got some bad feedback on,
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah, feedback's invaluable really, because that's how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of point out how they could have maybe strengthened it in the future, and perhaps even talk about, upcoming bids, about how they might present their strengths, because that's always quite tricky.
Yeah, absolutely, anything like that, whatever people will find useful, really. I could talk about business development all day.
I know. Favourite topic. So you just mentioned quickly that you've got some resources, you've got a website, you've got an ebook, and you've got some training. Where can people find out more about those?
Well, I can show you some screenshots.
Yeah.
So first of all, I offer training, in-house training, which is bespoke to your organisation. Yeah. But I also have some online training courses, and I'll just kind of show you a quick screenshot from one.
When case studies go bad.
That's it, when case studies go bad.
Logging the Great Dane. Okay.
Yes, this is, this is a story actually, yes, sorry. I'll just stop that because that's me talking. The beauty about online training is that you can take it at any time. It's very cost effective. And it's a mixture of slides and audio, tests, and also things for you to download.
Right.
So you can use that and do it in your own time. I'm also offering a package which is online training plus a coaching session, so you can ask any questions about the online training. So that's proving to be very popular. I also have a book on Amazon, Writing Bids and Tenders, which is all about collecting persuasive evidence for your bid, and that's only 99.
Yeah, your stars and your reviews.
Oh yes, 3 customer reviews. So if you just search for Oxberry, that will come up.
Yeah.
And then on my website, I have different things to download, and I also have a kind of blog which talks about things that are useful to think about for bidding, links to other resources. So this one here is around well-being, which is something that's quite difficult to describe in bids. So I just wrote something about that. So there's quite a few different resources, and there's also always new things coming up on the website, and you can actually buy the online courses from the website.
How much are the online courses?
Well, they vary in price. The case studies one, which is a mini masterclass, it's £25. Okay. And some of them are around £100 mark. So more if you have coaching with them as well.
So it's a bit of a cheaper option than having you in on your day rate.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I mean, obviously, if you've got a lot of people to train, actually having a bespoke one-to-one course in-house does work out quite cheap per person, really. Yeah. I did one recently for a social enterprise, and they had about 16 people, there on the day. But it was very much tailored. They'd done a review of they'd had some bad feedback from bids, and they'd done a review of all the areas where they thought they were weak. Yeah. And so the course was tailored to those areas. So they found that very useful.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up there and say we're really looking forward to the Tendering Cafe, and we will be sending details out on our e-bulletin as normal, including information about how to access Debbie's materials. So thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you. Thank you.